In problem number 45, what we're trying to do is look at an equation that's given and then to reason backwards to see what did the student do to get from equation 1 to equation 2. So particularly we're looking for what is the property of equality. Again, remember we're dealing with the addition property. That means you add the same thing to both sides and you get an equivalent equation. You subtract the same thing from both sides. You multiply the same thing by both sides, or you divide both sides by the same thing. So we want to know which of those properties were used to get from equation 1 to equation 2. And to me, more importantly than that is, why would a student use that particular property of equality, and what do they benefit by doing that, and how can we learn from that to possibly use the same strategy ourselves? So we start with equation 1, and that says that x minus 1/2 is equal to x over 4 plus 3. Now, ordinarily students don't like to use fractions in solving equations, and there is a simple strategy that we can use to get rid of the fractions in one step, and that would be to multiply both sides by the least common denominator of all the fractions in the equation. So in this case we have a 2 and a 4, and the least common denominator of 2 and 4 is 4. The greatest common factor is 2. So let me just write that down. The least common denominator really is the same as a least common multiple. And these are concepts that students often get confused. So the greatest common factor is the largest number that can evenly divide both 2 and 4. And that has to be 2. That factor can't be bigger than the smallest number. So in this case, the greatest common factor is 2, but the least common denominator is 4. The least common multiple has to be at least as large as the largest number. And so in this case, it's 4. So what would happen is that we would multiply both sides by that least common denominator, being careful to distribute 4 times every term on each side of the equation. So when we do that, 4 times x, we get 4x. 4 times, and that's minus, 4 times 1/2, and I'll write it out this time, is equal to 4 times x over 4, and 4 times 3 we know is 12. So 4/2 is the same as 2 wholes, and we can see that with fractions we multiply across and we would get 4 divided by 2, which is 2, so 4x minus 2. And on the other side, if we were to multiply across again, we would get 4 times x, which is 4x, over 1 times 4, which is 4. 4x over 4 is just x plus 12. And so now we have an equation that has x on both sides. Actually, at this point, it doesn't really matter. We're going to learn how to solve this type of equation in the next section. But you can see from this that what we just ended up with is the same as equation 2. So the question is, what was the property of equality that makes equation 1 and equation 2 equivalent? The multiplication property of equality makes equation 1 and equation 2 equivalent. And again, what does it mean that two equations are equivalent? It means that they share the same solution or solutions. And so x minus 1 half equals x over 4 plus 3 has the same solution as the equation 4x minus 2 is equal to x plus 12.